This Wednesday edition of Pucks Across Borders on Sports Addict Live and Total Apex Sports, brought to you by none other than First Round Collectibles. And right now, with the promo code Sports Addict, you get 10% off whatever sports card your heart desires. What's your sport? Hockey, basketball, football, baseball, maybe even wrestling, maybe even boxing. Whatever it is, doesn't matter. You can get it at firstroundcollectibles.com, and they still have sales items up from their Christmas sale. The gift that keeps on giving, sale items up to 50% off. And with the promo code Sports Addict, not only do you get 10% off of regular priced items, but also sale items. That's right. Regular priced, sales, doesn't matter. You get 10% off with the promo code Sports Addict. Go to firstroundcollectibles.com today and find your heroes. That's the number one, STRoundcollectibles.com. First Round Collectibles, sports cards for sports fans.
Yeah. Let's go. We just gotta go hard. I go the hardest. I bring the pain. Not what you used to. It's all part of the game. Yeah, I just gotta go hard. I just gotta go hard. Go hard. Yeah, oh yeah, the beast back. Adrenaline pumping through my veins, can't relax. Original, I am not the same as these cats. I sting them if
And welcome, Pucks Across Borders on a Wednesday. Good to be here on Sports Addict Live, YouTube, and X for Total Apex Sports. Shout out to them. Thank you guys for having us. Good to be here. Feel like we say this every time there's like 10, 11, 12 games in the NHL, but it's the truth. Crazy game on the ice last night. Crazy games on the ice last night. But first, before we dive in, I'm your host, Mark Sauter. Again, good to be here. And at the top of your screen, world traveler, leaving us for a week or two on vacation. Well-deserved. You read his work about the NFL on Gridiron Heroics. John, how you doing, man?
Doing good. Getting ready to go. And like, honestly, it was a long football season. I won't lie. And hockey season, I figured taking a week or two away, getting back recharged, and I'll be ready to go for the playoff push.
100%. So just real quick, we're all, transparent here. You know how it is before you leave on vacation. Are you like fighting mentally to be engaged? Because I think if I was you, I'd have one half of my brain on the airplane and one of my other half, the other half hanging on for dear life.
So it's like yes and no. I was really looking forward to come on today because we had a lot of interesting games last night. I think the writing part that I usually do after this will be more challenging because I have to leave earlier today than usual, and like I think the writing aspect will be more challenging to get myself fully engaged in because I am trying to write a couple articles after this.
Gotcha. Well, you're a professional. I believe in you. We believe in you. And at the bottom of your screen, you read his work about the NFL on Gridiron Heroics, winners and whiners. You see him talk about the NBA, the NFL, college hoops. He talks about it all on Total Apex Sports. Andre, how you feeling on a Wednesday morning, bro?
I'm feeling pretty good, but it's not about me. This is the John Sendoff show. So
that's right.
Let's keep it moving.
Absolutely love it. Well, John, let's go right back to you, man. What's your takeaway from the NHL on a Tuesday night?
So there was a lot to choose from, a lot of good games. Like I said, that's a big reason why I was looking forward to doing this show today. Definitely a lot to talk about. I think the game that stood out most to me was Washington and Detroit. And I know we technically have the nation's capital bet going on here, but I almost feel like the Capitals don't deserve it anymore after last night. They got And I think it was an interesting matchup because, like, I'll just say this: all three of us, I feel like, were on the Red Wings hard yesterday for that game. So I want to give the entire Pucks Across Borders crew a shout out there.
Mhm.
Um, Detroit, I think, proved to us or confirmed to us that they were the better team because both of them were playing pretty well going into that game. Detroit had won 5 straight. Washington was on a 5-game point streak because they won 4 of their last 5, and their one loss was an overtime loss. So Capitals were actually playing pretty well going into it. Usually, I felt like they matched up against teams well that could score, but maybe vulnerable defensively. They had wins during against the Devils and the Lightning in particular during this run. So it may make some people think that they could beat Detroit too. Well, I was skeptical, and I think we all were because Detroit has not only been playing their best hockey of late. I do I do genuinely feel like they're a more complete team, and I don't think their weaknesses are as bad as the teams I just mentioned. I think Tampa and the Devils have bigger holes, and what Detroit showed me is they are stepping up to the occasion. And Mark was the first one on this, so I'll give him his props there. Detroit is looking more and more like a playoff team each game I see from them. I think last night really stood out to me and this whole stretch, this 6-game winning streak, because the Red Wings are getting big wins that they really benefit beating. And the Capitals, I know they have looked good recently, but I think last night showed that we've been right about them. And I think all three of us have refused to buy into that team. And I know technically they're still in it on paper, but I think last night's an example of why we're not buying into the Capitals, why we're buying more and more into the Red Wings. So that's the biggest takeaway I got from last night.
Yeah, and you know what, man? Like the more I watch Detroit, the more I think because I do feel like the sentiment was across the hockey world is like because lots of people thought that Detroit would make it, and I think from the people who didn't think and the people that did think, I do think I think that the overall consensus was if Detroit makes it into the playoffs, it's a good story. They're back in the playoffs. They made it 25 straight years. Then they didn't make it for a long time, and now they're back. Steve Yzerman getting this young team going the right direction, blah, blah, blah. But then they would be out first round. And while that is probably the case, that's probably true. But as of right now, they would play the Rangers, and I think the Rangers would win that series, but that's not going to be a 4-game sweep. That's going to be a hard-fought series. Like Detroit is really making a name for themselves as a legit like problem to deal with. Do I think they're going to go on some magical run? No, but like if Boston wins the division and the Rangers win the conference and Boston plays Detroit, I mean, I can't tell you that I would take Boston in that series. That would be a legitimate, like Detroit could beat Boston in 7 games. So it's really interesting to watch coming down the stretch. And it does look more and more like that final wild card spot is really the one to keep an eye on. Andre, over to you, man. What's your takeaway in the NHL last night?
Well, there's a few things I liked. Really, the Avalanche and the Flames. I really liked the way they played. But I had a question I wanted to pose to you gentlemen yesterday. I saved it for today because, there were 12 games yesterday. The Clippers, the NBA, introduced new logo, new jerseys. They're about to change buildings, all that. So a little bit of a rebrand for their stuff. And I was going to ask you two if you could redesign a logo and a uniform for an NHL team. Who would you pick? And why?
Yeah, this one's easy for me. John, like, do you have an answer off the top of your head? You go first, because I'm locked and loaded on this one. I love this.
You should start. I
there
think
is a right answer.
Well, for me, personally, it's the Dallas Stars. I can't stand their uniforms. I can't. Like, in the late 90s and early 2000s, the like forest green with the gold and the black triangle on the bottom and that crazy star. Like, I thought that was really cool. And whatever they have going on right now, I don't like it. Yet the jerseys that they have right now, they're better than their third jerseys. That freaking construction vest they have that they wear with the black and the neon green. I can't stand the Dallas Stars jersey. And to be quite honest, I could probably think harder about this and maybe come up with a different answer, but I actually think about this once a week, how much I can't stand their jerseys. It drives me nuts. I might do a throwback. I might bring it back to the Minnesota North Stars days and make it kind of, I know Texas isn't North, but something like that, because those jerseys were dope. But whatever they're doing right now, man, I think they're ugly. The white ones are nicer than the green ones because the shade of green, but green in general, like green's a weird color to do a jersey in. And I say that as an Eagles fan. But anyway, John, you got an answer yet or what? And why is it Dallas?
It's not Dallas. Logo, it's the Florida Panthers.
Really?
The logo, I might logo definitely. Jersey, I'm not as quick to say that. Yeah, logo definitely Florida Panthers. It's the most dated one of the bunch, and I think what adds to this for me is that Carolina, the NFL team, does it so much better than the Florida NHL team, like using the Panthers in a unique logo. I love the Carolina Panthers logo, and I think Florida is just such a contrast of opinion for me. I hate the color design. The logo looks very dated compared to some of the other ones out there, and I just don't think it's aged well. It could use a revamp for sure, and also that team just struggles in general with fan base and attendance. So I think they would actually benefit from like a bit of a revamp and identity a bit, just to get some of the younger fans on board, because they're playing well. They deserve a bigger fan base than they have. So I think at least for logo, that would be my answer. I might even stretch this and say jersey as well. I don't love their jerseys either. So yeah, I think the Florida Panthers are my answer across the board.
I will say, Andre, before you take it over, I will say that I am thinking more along the lines of a whole jersey than I was specific logo. Because the Dallas logo is actually fine. It's just the jersey configuration that's god awful. Yeah. I would, maybe it's because I'm a 90s kid or like late 80s, 90s kid, and I miss the old school. I would probably say the Ducks. I find compared to the Mighty Ducks logo, their logo is like a D with a webbed foot in the middle. Like, it's just kind of like, I don't know. But yeah, my answer was more based on like jerseys as a whole. Because I do think about the Dallas Stars jersey once a week. It takes up way too much time in my mind. But anyway, Andre, back to you, man. What brought this question up?
Well, Mark, what are you gonna do if the Dallas Stars introduce shiny green helmets?
Oh my! It's inevitable. It's inevitable. Do you know what's funny? Sorry, Andre, real quick. Do you know what's funny about that? Is Vegas played the Leafs last night, and I'm watching the game, and I literally thought this last night as I'm watching the game. Like, I know it's their away like outfits, but they look sick. Like white with the white gloves and the white helmet. It looks sick. And then the black, like they got the black jerseys with the black helmets and like the black and gold like gloves. Like, there's no need for that shiny nonsense. It's so unnecessary. It drives me nuts. And the Kings too. Yeah, the green, dude. If the Canucks could do a shiny blue helmet, the Dallas shiny green is around the corner.
It's coming.
Although Texas is a lot more no nonsense than Vegas is, so
I don't know. I think they would love that. I think it's obnoxious enough where it would cross into lovable.
Yeah.
Yeah, I considered a few teams. I considered the Jackets. I considered the Ducks. But John, you hit the nail on the head. It's the Florida Panthers. It's so boring. It looks like a relegated soccer team.
It does.
And they used to have the Roaring Panther. That was awesome. And now their best era of hockey to date is going to be remembered by this boring shield with like this supposed to be regal looking panther. And it's just so bleh. Bring back the Roaring Panther, bring back some color. Just make it happen.
I gotta
want
look
a
up this
cool
Roaring Panther that you're talking about. I don't remember that.
Oh, it's sick.
It had the leaping one.
That I like.
Like
Oh, yeah. Okay, this is coming back to me now. You're 100% right. The Leaping Panther is so much better than what they have now.
I completely agree.
Yeah, I forgot about that. Yeah, that's definitely better. I would definitely prefer that.
It's funny that you mention it because I'm looking at it right now, and you're right. If you threw that logo in with a bunch of soccer logos, you wouldn't. And if you didn't know, like, you would just think, oh, yeah, Florida soccer team, Florida FC.
Oh, yeah.
That's so funny.
This is sick, the Leaping Panther thing. Why did they change that?
That's what the world's trying to figure out.
That's
the
so
broken
funny.
stick in it too. They messed up.
Oh yeah,
big time.
Yeah, that's dope. I agree with you. I still. How about this? A logo we could change. Panthers. You guys are right. Jersey we could change. It's Dallas. Because the Florida jerseys have been pretty similar the whole way along. They have their tweaks, but they've been pretty much the same since their
same colors. Same
the inauguration. Exactly. But the Dallas Stars, they just can't figure it out. They can't settle on something, change it every couple of years. All right. My takeaway from last night, I mean, there is a lot to take away. There's a lot to kind of dive into. I think you hit the nail on the head with Detroit. With Detroit winning, considering they beat Washington, that is a big story too, right? Washington loses, Philly wins, Pittsburgh wins, and the Devils win. So that loss was huge for Washington, big for Detroit. Big loss for the Kings with Calgary winning. I'm kind of settling on the Winnipeg Jets winning last night with the Dallas Stars losing to the Colorado Avalanche. We're talking about all these wild card races, right? Both the East and the West, definitely more so the West than the East. I think there's a lot more attainable races in the West than the East, but both of them are very relevant wild card races. I don't know if I have seen, I'm sure I have, it's just not coming to memory, a division, which I mentioned, the Central, all those teams I just mentioned are in the Central, where all top three are all within a game of each other. Like with the win last night, Winnipeg retakes the number one spot in the Central, which would be the 2 seed in the Western Conference. Dallas now 79 points as well, tied with Winnipeg, but a worse winning percentage. So Winnipeg is number one. They have 79 points. Dallas has 79 points. Colorado has 77 points. And that is super, super interesting because as of right now, if Winnipeg or whoever wins the first seed in the Central would play the first wildcard team, which would right now be the Kings. Now, I don't think the Kings are 100% not what they were at the beginning of the year, but they still have that somewhere deep down inside. I think if you would rather face the Kings or Nashville, although Nashville's on a heater right now, maybe you wouldn't want to play Nashville either. But whoever does not win the Central, you got to play like Dallas or Colorado. And that as a first round, like, I don't care how much potential the Kings have or what they do at the trade deadline. You would rather play the Kings than Dallas or Colorado. You know what I mean? So to me, whoever wins the Central, that might be the biggest. Maybe, I mean, with the Atlantic too, like Florida and Boston are both going to be hard first rounds. But you know what I'm saying? Like, that Central race is super interesting to me because whoever doesn't win that division, like Dallas, Colorado, two phenomenal teams, and one of them's not getting to the second round. So that's really, really interesting here, ramping up in the last month or so of the season. Trade deadline, by the way, next Friday. So really going to be interesting to see how that pans out moving forward. All right, let's jump into our bad beats from last night. There's a few. But first, again, Andre, we got to give John his flowers, man. Started off or finished off the week with a win, a much needed win last Friday. Hasn't lost yet. 2 wins in a row this week. You're on a 3-game heater, John. How do you feel? And you won again last night. So how do you feel? But did you have a bad beat mixed in there last night?
Be cool if I could leave on like high notes when it comes to the best bets, like to sweep half the week leaving. So I'm crossing my fingers for tonight. Bad beat. I think most of us overall had a good night. I mean, if you look at our picks up and down yesterday, that was definitely one of my better pick days on this show since I've been here. Like, usually those long marathon days, I'd be happy to go 55%. Yesterday, I don't remember the exact record, but I think I hit 75 or 80% of the picks I made yesterday. It's one of those where I wish I would have bet real money, like significant money on the picks I made. So anyway, not many bad beats, but one in particular stands out. Just more of an annoying thing than something heartbreaking. Yesterday, I ironically said on the show the Florida Panthers were the most reliable team in the NHL to bet on, outside maybe the Vancouver Canucks.
You did say that.
And ironically, both of them lost. Ironically, both of those bets lost yesterday. I think they were actually the only 2 I lost on the whole slate. Florida was particularly annoying because, like, we even talked about it in this segment, and props to you guys for picking the Sabres puck line there. I was a little stubborn to do it, even though the Sabres do play spoiler once in a while, and they had been playing well going into it. I refused to listen and trusted Florida maybe a little bit too much. Perhaps the Panthers got caught looking ahead a little bit. Maybe they just caught Buffalo at a bad time. I don't know. But they only won the game by 1 goal, which is extra annoying because that really means there wasn't a good bet on the board available. Like, because you would have had I think the puck line was like minus 130 yesterday, right? On the Buffalo side.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, so there was nothing crazy jumping out at me in that game in particular. It was one of those I felt like I had to rely on the team I thought was truly better. While they did win the game, unfortunately, they couldn't win by 2 goals. So I guess my bad beat there is Florida only wins by 1 goal.
Yeah, that's try telling you, that's a tough. That was a lot tougher of a game. Yeah, 100%. 100%. Andre, what about you, man? What's your bad beat from last night?
Well, first, kudos to John. I'm gonna try to rub your head and take some of your magic later. But even though it was a 4-2 loss, the Coyotes for me are the bad beat. Connor Ingram back. They're facing a team that's lost 5 in a row. They held them to 21 shots. They had 38 of their own. Had 5 shots on their second period power play. Nothing to show for it. Only mustered 2 goals in the entire game. I just feel like Was it you, John, that said they broke a mirror or something before this losing streak started?
Yes,
Yesterday.
the Coyotes, because it was their 13th loss.
Yeah, you're. I think you hit the nail on the head here. They just can't go right for them. Kudos to Montebo for playing well. Kudos to Canadians, but Coyotes had the blueprint to win that game. 17 more shots, their top goalie in net. Uh, some pretty good looks on the power play. More power play opportunities just in general, and nothing to show for it. So,
Yeah, and sorry.
as just say, I don't think, or Montreal didn't have a go on the power play at all, actually. So,
Yeah, to add to it, I picked Lawson Krause over 2.5 shots, and he got 2. So that's like an additional, like, just kick in the, you know what. So my bad beat. It stings because it was a pretty big underdog pick, and I think we were all on the Wild, were we not? Or was one of us on Carolina? I thought we were all on the Wild yesterday. But yeah, the Wild, not only did they lose that game, but they were up 1-0. Then they were up 2-1. Couldn't hold the lead, was going 2-2 into the third period, and Carolina squeaked it out, which is what Carolina's been doing lately, squeaking out these wins. But yeah, my bad beats the Wild. That was probably one of my favorite underdog picks from yesterday, and just did not pan out. So before we get into our take or into the breakdown, only 2 games in the NHL tonight, not too much to discuss. 2 heavily favorited teams playing against 2 massive underdogs. We'll get to that in a moment, but John threw out the idea pre-show, and I love it. He's leaving us on vacation again, well-deserved vacation. Busy football season. The man needs to relax a little bit. Catching his Devils in is that the Sunshine State or is that Florida?
That's Florida.
That's Florida. Well, whatever. Y'all know what I mean. But anyway, we thought the Devils with a big win last night, Leafs and Rangers playing each other on Saturday. Still not too much drama towards the end of the season for the Rangers, but still, they gotta stay consistent. And lots of drama for the Devils and the Leafs heading into the final stretch. So we thought we'd just kind of do a little roundtable here, talk about our teams before our boy leaves us, and we'll see. This is the fun question is, and John, we'll start with you, man. You get first say here, but kind of an additional question for you is, by the time you return, do the Devils matter?
Well,
are we talking about a playoff run when you come back home?
Give me 1 second here. I want to get the full schedule out in front of me because I know who they're playing like the next 3 games, and I know they play the Rangers in a couple weeks. I just want to get the full grasp of this. Okay, so the 3 immediate games for the Devils are the 2 in Southern California with the Ducks and the Kings. And I mentioned the Panthers yesterday. They're playing them as soon as they get back from that. Then they have a home stretch against the Blues, the Hurricanes, which we tend to struggle against. Then at the Rangers and at the Stars. And I think the Stars are going to be the last one I'm really away for. So let's just call this 7 games. I won't lie. That is a tough 7 games.
Mm-hmm.
I almost think the West Coast trip is the easiest stretch for the Devils. This is a good question, honestly. Like, the Panthers game really scares me. I won't lie. I even mentioned earlier this week I'm worried about it, and we need to stack up points before that. I think the Devils need to beat the Ducks and the Kings, especially because, like I mentioned to start the week, that they need to get at least 5 points from this California road trip. They got 2 last night, so I think at minimum they need to get 3 points from those Ducks and Kings games, which I think they can do. I really do believe that. The Kings would scare me a bit more, but I feel like the Devils are going to do it. The Panthers game scares me. I feel like they'll lose that one. Blues, I think they win. Canes, I think they lose. Rangers, that's a bit unpredictable because like the Rangers spanked us in our last meeting, and it's a little unpredictable because it's a rivalry game, but the Rangers do seem to have something on us this time, so I can't say for certain what's going to happen. That one's at the Garden too, so that's an additional note. The Dallas game is another one. I'm not really sure what to make of that one. I think the Rangers and the Stars games are tough. I have a good feeling about the other 5. I feel like Detroit's going to cool down eventually. I'm not sure what to make of Tampa Bay. I'm going to say the Devils are going to be in about the same position they are now, like maybe 4 to 6 points back. I feel like they're going to tread water through this stretch. That's my gut feeling.
So, do you think that they need to make drastic moves at the deadline?
Drastic?
Because like my reasoning for this question is like
they need a goaltender for sure.
Yeah, but if you get a goaltender with term like Markstrom, that's one thing. But if you get a goaltender who's on a 1-year deal, like, and you miss the playoffs, like, what's the point? You know what I mean?
Yeah, it really depends what they'd have to give up, honestly.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't get the feeling they would get Markstrom. I heard a rumor going around, it was discussed, but also the Flames are playing well right now too, so that makes that a little more complicated as well.
Yeah,
so,
and he's playing terrific.
Yeah, so like I don't know I don't have a good read on Calgary, what they're thinking long term, but I know in the short term they're playing well and they have an argument to make a playoff run. So it makes me skeptical of if they would be sellers. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I'm skeptical the Devils can get anybody really significant.
Yeah, like I don't know their like draft capital. I don't know their prospect pool. I don't know anything like that. What I do think, my personal opinion, no pun intended, this is the season from hell for the Devils. And I think they got like Jack Hughes couldn't stay healthy all year. I mean, losing Hamilton, that was a huge blow. I don't think I fully realized how important that was until here we are now. And it's like, oh yeah, their back end is like, they need him back there. I think you guys come back next year and have a very good season. I think you slightly overachieved last year, and I think you underachieved this year. And I think next year we kind of come back to somewhere in the middle. Andre, let's go over to you, man. Your Rangers. How we feeling heading into the backstretch of the season? I don't think you're worried about the winning streak ending to Columbus. I think that's like water under the bridge for you. How do you feel about your team heading into the playoffs? And you're the number 1 seed in your division, kind of hovering around the first seed in the East in general. Are we legitimately looking at a Stanley Cup run here for your New York Rangers?
I hope so. Yeah, the winning streak, I felt like we were going to lose one to Columbus. So
yeah,
sucks that it was the first one. I can't come into today hoping for a perfect month, but it is what it is. Looking towards the playoffs and even looking towards the seeding in the East, the Rangers' schedule down the stretch is brutal. We play the Senators to close out the season. We play Montreal in April. We play Arizona the end of March. And every other game I'd classify as tough. Maybe not the Blues next Saturday, but I think today is really like the last opportunity for free points in a solid month-long stretch. So, game against Florida, we got Boston for the last time. We got 2 against the Devils. We got 2 against the Islanders. Actually, I think we have 3 against the Islanders. We had the Flyers a couple times. We got the Penguins twice, I believe. We have the Red Wings still. We have the Jets. Obviously, we have your boys coming up. We have the Lightning. Like, it's a lot of tests. They're going to be playoff ready by the time the regular season ends, whether they like it or not. The question is how they fare in those games. Do they hold on to the 1 seed? I think Carolina's schedule down the stretch is a little bit easier. They have been squeaking out those wins. So as good as the season's been, they may not be atop the Metro when it's all said and done. At the same time, they very easily control their destiny towards top in the East. Could win the President's Trophy. Not exactly sure if that's a goal anyone wants, but that's all there in front of them. If they keep playing well, they could beat anyone. They can make that run. But we've seen this team go through slumps. There are concerns with the center depth, the right wing depth. Obviously, injuries could be a factor. Matt Rumpy, at this rate, is going to be concussed by St. Patrick's Day. Kid gets into a fight every 90 seconds. So
yeah,
everything's there. It's just about focus, attention to detail, health, honestly. But I like where the boys are at. And if they don't win the Metro, it's not the worst thing in the world. I think Philly would be a really good matchup for them first round. So, we'll
yeah.
see.
Yeah, I mean it kind of goes back to the conversation I was having about the Jets and winning the Central. In the East, though, like in the West, I think winning the division is really important because I think the Kings and the Preds or Calgary or St. Louis or Minnesota, like whoever gets those final wildcard spots, I think it's a favorable matchup for the division winners. In the East, where I agree with you that the Rangers and Philly would be a favorable matchup for the Rangers, I don't see any, like, and I know it's the NHL and no series is easy, but in the East, like, all these series seem tough. Like, I mean, Detroit's going to be a tough series. Tampa Bay, they're not what they were. We all know that, but they're still Tampa Bay. They still got that championship pedigree. They still have that guy named Kucherov who can score 4 points in the first period. So it's going to be really, really interesting to see. I do think the Rangers, I feel like you would still prefer to win the division. Out of Philly, Detroit, and Tampa Bay, I think I'd want to play Philly the least. But that's just my opinion. I think that's kind of subjective, but that's how I'd feel about it.
Yeah. Obviously, we haven't played a lot of home games compared to most teams, and the Rangers are really good in the Garden, but they can win on the road. So,
yeah,
I don't think it's the most important issue. It would be nice, though. It'd be very nice. Like, I mean, especially like Carolina, they're not going to have, if they face the Flyers, they face the Rangers, they face, I don't know if this goes for the Devils too. If they face like the Bruins or teams like that, they won't even have a full barn for those playoff games. So, like, traveling to Carolina doesn't scare me. Philly's close enough where travel won't be an issue. And I don't think they can pass us in the standings at this point, so that'll be home ice anyway.
Yeah.
I think the biggest team I would want to finish ahead in the standings for home ice purposes would be the Bruins. I feel like that would be important to have that game 7 in the Garden. If it got to that, I feel like would be important, more important than any other team.
Yeah, I agree with that. We've talked about this extensively on the show before. I don't think it would be a big deal, like for home ice purposes, if say you finish behind Florida and you two met up in the playoffs. I think the Rangers would be fine out there.
Yeah.
Boston is another story, like you said, man. Yeah, that I see a strong argument for that. I still feel like you're gonna finish above Carolina in the regular season, at least for the division. I feel like the
Yeah.
Rangers are gonna hang on.
If you guys win 2 out of the next 3 or 2 out of 3 games for the rest of the year, you're winning the division.
Yeah.
You know, win 2, lose 1, win 2. You'll be fine. 5 points ahead now, right?
Yeah, we're 5 up, same amount of games played. And we play Carolina on the 12th, my brother's birthday. So
yeah, I mean, I think right now you're playing the best hockey of the year for you guys. I know that you lost to Columbus on the weekend. And I think, I mean, talking about Boston, like Boston, Florida's been playing good hockey all year long, and Boston, they're getting points, but by the skin of their teeth, right? And I think they're showing some serious cracks in that armor. And I mean, Carolina, I don't know what they have to do to get me to believe in them. I mean, they're having a good year. They're playing very well right now. And I'm not buying in. And I think that's more a me issue than a them issue. There's just something about them that I'm just not buying into. And like I've already said, I think if they play Philly in the first round, I think Philly wins that round. That's just how I feel. And not too sure why. I might have a man crush on like Jordan on Torts or something. I don't know. But or maybe I have like father issues and I look at him as like a father figure. I mean, there's lots that I can get into in therapy next week, but I really like Philly in that first round matchup. All right, moving on to me before I say something else that's too personal. The Leafs lose 6-2 to Vegas last night, and I texted you guys like it wasn't a 6-2 loss. I didn't look at it like that. It was 3-1 for a large part of that game. It was 0-0 going into the second period. It was 3-1, then 4-1, then 4-2. It was a much closer game than the score would show. An empty netter and then a last minute goal with like 30 seconds left or something like that. It was a close game. I think you guys called it. John specifically called it. Vegas, you could tell that they were very intentional about playing a much better game. Aiden Hill had a phenomenal game last night. He played terrific. I thought the Leafs, just a couple mental mistakes that were really dumb that kind of cost them that game last night. Overall, it doesn't concern me. Like the loss itself doesn't concern me. There's no signs from last night that I'm worried about for the future. Nothing like that. What it does do, though, is you lost, regardless of if it was closer than the score indicated or whatever. You lost in regulation. You got 0 points. What's crazy is, as I talked about yesterday, the Leafs are now 8-2 in their last 10 games, 12-4 in their last 16 games. That's a really good stretch. Like, that's a really, really good stretch. Well, guess what? Detroit, they're 7-2-1 in their last 10. Like, while you were having your good stretch and while you were trying to separate yourself and while you're playing your best hockey of the year, Detroit is also playing their best hockey of the year. So you have this crazy run playing the best hockey that I've seen the Leafs play in, quite frankly, years. Like, this is the best hockey I've seen them play in a long time. I did not buy into them as a cup contender until like last week. Like, I was skeptical about this team all year long, and I finally bought into it. But, man, Detroit is playing their best hockey of the year, too. And we talked about this yesterday. Don't look now. But Detroit is 2 spots back of the Leafs for third in the Atlantic Division. So you gotta keep winning. So you had a good 16 games. Okay, cool. So what, man? The Red Wings are right on your tail. And tomorrow, the Leafs play the Coyotes in Toronto, and Detroit plays the Islanders in Detroit. Uh, do I think that the Red Wings win that game? I do. Spoiler alert for tomorrow. I do think that they win that game tomorrow. But the Islanders can come out with some weird 3-2 overtime win. You need all the points you can get right now. And this isn't playing Chicago in October, where it's October, you got time. You're playing the Coyotes tomorrow. Crush them, beat them bad. Like this, you have to win tomorrow night. It's not that every game is a must win for them to get to the playoffs, but every game is a must win for them to get favorable seeding. And while I just said that I don't think any round, like any opponent in the East is necessarily favorable, I don't know. I think I would rather play Boston than the Rangers. I'd probably rather play Boston than definitely would rather play Boston than Florida. I think if you're giving me the Rangers or Florida as the other options opposed to playing against Boston, I think I'd rather play Boston than Florida or New York. That's my opinion. Not that it's going to be easy by any means, but that I would rather that as a first round matchup. So you got to win these games down the stretch. You're playing the best hockey of the year. You're playing very well. Liljegren was out last night with an injury on the back end. You lost Gio for a couple games. His father tragically passing away. He's back now. So there's like some reasons. Tavares last night looked like he was favoring something. Like he did not look right. So, but no one's feeling right now, right? Especially guys in their mid-30s heading into the back half of the year. You guys know sports. You know how it is this time of the year. Everybody's dealing with something. So you need to get these wins. So we'll be really curious to see. I'm not scared of them like missing out on the playoffs or nothing like that. But if they want to stay in that third seed, you got to keep winning here because Detroit, they're coming, man. Detroit's coming. The last thing I'll say to throw this in here, Florida, and Boston tied with 82 points. Toronto, you're only 8 points back. Do I think that they have a hope of getting to the number one seed? There's a hope. I don't think they will, but there's a hope. So keep winning and see what happens. Okay, moving along. We'll go through these two games in the NHL tonight. Short and sweet. Columbus is in New York to play the Rangers. These odds have shifted, not dramatically, but a little bit since I created this. The Rangers are minus 245 favorites at home. Plus 200 are the Blue Jackets on the road. Minus 1.5 puck line is minus 108. Plus 1.5 puck line is minus 112. The over is 6.5 at minus 105. And the under is minus 115. Andre, as always, they're your boys. We just talked about them. What do you see in this game tonight?
Yeah, I think it's a little too late to get that puck line at plus 100, but last chance to get a free not a free 2 points, but an easier pair of points in a while, especially at home, especially a team that just snapped your franchise record winning streak a couple days ago, or it was tied for it. So I expect a dominant performance. I expect the 4-1, 5-1 win here. It's the Jackets. Shesterkin should be in net this time, not quick. Home ice, just revenge factor. Try to, keep the Canes off your heels a little bit. The Canes did win yesterday. There's so many reasons why, but Yeah, I'm taking Rangers -1.5. I would even go as far as to say -2.5. Honestly, I feel very confident about this one. I'll go under 6.5 because I don't see the Jackets scoring multiple goals in this, honestly.
Yeah.
Um, and they played very well on Sunday. It wasn't like a Rangers stunk, and I'm just like bitter about that. The Jackets played a very good game. I just don't see it happening again. When you see a team twice in a row, it's the second time usually doesn't work out the same way. So that's where I'm at with it. Also, Jackets under 1.5 goals is +200.
Ooh. Yeah, I mean, not only do I not see the Blue Jackets beating the Rangers 2 games in a row, November 22nd to 24th, they played 2 games and they won both of those games. The Blue Jackets did. October 20th and 21st, they played 2 games and they won both of those. Those are the only 2 times they've ever won 2 games in a row. All year. They've never. That's all. That's it. So not only do I not see them beating the Rangers 2 times in a row, I don't see them winning 2 games in a row, let alone both of them against the Rangers. So this is an easy one. Rangers -1.5. Really quickly, Trocheck, 4 goals in his last 5 games. He is +140. Lafreniere, 3 goals in his last 5 games. He is +190. But more specifically for him, and I know it's a lot of juice, but if you're adding it to a parlay, he has 18 shots in his last 5 games. Lafreniere does 18 shots in his last 5 games, and his over is only 2.5. Now it's -145. It is a lot of juice. You can get 4+ shots for +175. But I like his shot total props. If you're adding it in a parlay or something like that. John, over to you, man. What do you see? Oh, I did try to look for some props. I knew there was only 2 games tonight. I tried looking for some props for the Blue Jackets, but I got nothing. So, John, over to you, man. What do you see?
All right, so really short and sweet. I really like the Rangers here tonight. They're gonna crush them, in my opinion.
Yeah.
I was seeing what the odds were for like under 2.5 for Columbus. I could see why Andre went the 1.5 route. Now it's a little more than I would like for it. Like -135 for the team total for Columbus. Yeah, I cannot see Columbus scoring more than 2, but I'd even be tempted with that under 1.5 that Andre mentioned. I feel the same way. Rangers, this is a home and home for them. Columbus just snapped their big winning streak, 10 games. I don't see how the Rangers let another one slide here, especially against the team that just ended the streak. They haven't played another team since then, so they've had all their time and energy to just focus on Columbus. I think they're just too good of a team to let a team like Columbus get them twice. Rangers puck line at minimum. I'm with Andre saying 2.5 might even be worth a shot here. I just see this being a one-sided affair tonight. I don't think this is one of those games Columbus sneaks up on us. So either take a large Rangers puck line or bet the team total under for Columbus. Like I think one of those two is a very good play. Or both of them would be, I should say.
Love it. Absolutely love it. All right, let's move on to the last game, the second game, the last game of the night. I also gotta say, I gotta just throw this out here really quickly. I often rag on the NHL for the lack of staggering games. We've seen it before where there's only been 2 games and they were both on at 7:00. Like that's a thing that we've seen. So at least thank you for staggering these games. And even Sunday, nice staggering. Monday, good staggering. Yesterday, so it's been better. It's been getting better. All right, moving on. St. Louis in Edmonton. Edmonton -265 favorites. St. Louis +215 on the road. I know that Edmonton is a very, very good team. And I know that St. Louis is the definition of mediocre, but these odds seem way too much to me. But that's just me. Over 6.5, -108. The under is -112. +1.5 for St. Louis is -110. The Edmonton Oilers puck line -1.5 is the same. John, we'll go to you first, man. What do you see in this game tonight?
I'm going all chalk here and picking Edmonton puck line. I don't feel as confident to bump that up to 2.5 as I did the Rangers, but I think the traditional puck line is just fine here. You can get it at near even money, and I like it. I'm personally going to jump on it for this segment, mainly because I think Edmonton's a much better team. I don't think the Blues can score with the Oilers. Well, typically, I should say.
Mm-hmm.
Correct me if I'm wrong, though. Didn't St. Louis beat Edmonton earlier this year? I'm pretty sure they did, but I'd have to double check that. Either way.
Yeah, I can double check real quick.
Yeah, I could have sworn. I remember the Blues beating them, but I think it was on the Blues home ice.
Yeah, 2 weeks ago, 6-3 in St. Louis.
Okay, yeah. Because I do remember the Blues really surprising me. So I shouldn't say they can't score on them. Typically, I would say they wouldn't be able to. The point being, I guess I'll throw in a bit of a redemption factor for Edmonton here. I'm skeptical if St. Louis is consistent enough to do that twice to the Oilers, and this time is in Edmonton, so I think that adds an extra challenge. And I'll add one more thing, too. St. Louis is playing a back-to-back. They just played Winnipeg last night. I don't think they looked great in that game. It didn't look like it, at least. And they played a tough Winnipeg team last night, too, and I don't know if that's a great team to play on the first half of a back-to-back before you're going up against a team that likes to skate up and down the ice. So I just think it's bad timing for St. Louis. I'll add the redemption factor for Edmonton as well. I also think Edmonton's playing better now than they were maybe 2 weeks ago. So, because I think that was just after their historic streak, maybe. I don't remember the exact timing, but my point is Edmonton puck line, I really like it. I'm sorry to be all chalk here today, but these games are not going to be much to work with. So Edmonton 1.5, I'll take it.
Andre, what about you, man? What do you see here?
Yeah, John, there's no need to apologize because I parlayed these puck lines before we even hopped on the show.
Word. Get confirmation bias here.
Yeah. I mean, the Blues, credit to them, they did beat the Oilers 6-3 in Edmonton 2 weeks ago. Since then, they've only scored more than 2 goals in a game once, and that was their only win since then. The Blues offense struggling a lot. Their worst team on the road. It's the second half of a back-to-back. Had to hop across provinces. It's just not a lot going right for them. And, Oilers, big win on Monday against the Kings, 4-2. They're not winning much per se. They're not on that heater. Obviously, the offense is still good for 3+ goals every single night. They're almost impossible to stop. They held the Kings to 2 goals. I think they can do the same to the Blues. And you can't convince me that playing for the second night in a row, St. Louis is going to hold Edmonton to only 3 goals. So if you're looking at a 4-2 game, that's a puck line, and that's good enough for me. So I like Edmonton -1.5 here, slightly favoring the over in this one. But I don't have a strong feeling about the total in this game. So I would just stick with the puck line, which I already have.
Love it. Yeah, I tried to get myself there. Like I've said before, I have a weird thing with the Blues. I like root for them for some reason. I want to see them do well, but I just can't see it tonight. And I do think +215, even on a back-to-back, I do think that's outrageous. And I would love to find some chinks in the armor and take the +215 and stick it to the books. But I just don't see that happening tonight. I think -1.5 for the Oilers is the right play here. But I mean, that being said, St. Louis 2-5 their last 7 games. Before that, they were on a 7-1 stretch. Edmonton 1-3 their last 4 games. They're 5-6. To answer your question fully, John, they're 5-6 since their historic winning streak. So, like Edmonton not playing the most consistent hockey ever. I know that Binnington is playing tonight, but that being said, in the last 5 games for St. Louis, they've allowed 4 goals, 6 goals, 0 goals, had a shutout there, but then allowed 4 goals and 5 goals the 2 games before that. So they're allowing a lot of goals right now. Not a good recipe back-to-back playing the Oilers. Really quickly to wrap this up, Hyman, 6 goals in his last 5 games. He's plus 100. Good for Zach Hyman for being plus 100 to score a goal. Good for him. Good to see. Not good for us, but good for him. I know it's plus 100, but I do like that tonight. For a shot prop, McDavid has 16 shots over his last 5 games. I will say McDavid is minus money, but he hasn't scored in a long time, so he's eventually going to break through on that. McDavid over 3.5 shots is minus 130. A little bit of juice, but I do like that. Back to Zach Hyman. He has 20 shots over the last 5 games. Over 3.5 for him is minus 115. And Warren Fogle, random name, but he has 15 shots over his last 5 games. Over 2.5 shots is minus 115 for him. That's probably the one that I like the most. Over 2.5, he's averaging 3, minus 115. So those are a couple props for you guys to think about throughout the day. Awesome stuff. Before we get into our best bets, I will say on the chat, the YouTube chat, thank you to everybody when you do chime in. We love to see it. We were asked a question about fighting in the NHL. So today is a little farewell episode for John. We talked about a lot. Tomorrow, we do have a larger slate, but it will only be Andre and I will have a little bit more time. So we'll dive into the whole fighting thing tomorrow. We'll keep it short and sweet today. And by short and sweet, I mean over an hour. So with all that being said, we move on to our best bets, brought to you by none other than First Round Collectibles. Promo code SportsAddict for 10% off whatever sports card your heart desires. Go to firstroundcollectibles.com and find your heroes. That's the number 1, STRoundcollectibles.com. First Round Collectibles, sports cards for sports fans. John, we'll start with you first, man. Like we said, finished off last week with a win. You're now 3-0. Let's finish off your week with a win, bro. What do you have as your best bet in this very small option?
Yeah.
What do you see tonight as your best bet?
So let me make this good because it's going to be a while before I do another one with you guys. I'll say I'm gonna miss doing this every day for a little bit, but I'll be back. I'm sure you guys will hold it down just fine. Looking forward to your trade deadline talks, and I'll be tuning in while I'm on the road. Maybe I'll throw a comment or 2 your way.
I count on it.
With the best bets, this partially depends on what Andre wants to do with the Rangers game because I have 2 things I'm considering in that specific game. I really like the Rangers tonight, and I think 2 things really fit. 2 things Andre really touched on. So a puck line and a team total. I think I'm going a little safer with the team total. I don't know if I want to do under 1.5 for Columbus, but under 2.5 I'd lock in right now. The problem is that's like minus 140. But in a parlay, I feel more okay about that than like as an individual thing. You know what I mean? I would be shocked if Columbus scored more than 2 goals tonight. 1, I'm a little shaky on. I could see them getting a random second goal if the Rangers like pull away. I think under 2.5, I would really lock in for Columbus's team total. So I'll go that direction.
I guess the only question is if you can do that in a parlay, like same game parlay.
Yeah, you can.
Awesome. Andre, what about you, man? What are you throwing out as your best bet tonight?
Yeah. Keep it simple, stupid. Let's just kiss the Rangers and bless them tonight. I'm taking the puck line -1.5. I think we all usually try to avoid our teams as best bets, but I feel very confident about it. And although I feel just as confident about the Oilers beating the Blues by multiple goals, I'll just lock in my boys in the early slate. You can take Canada, Mark.
Yeah, might as well. I'm gonna take the Oilers -1.5. I did want to get a bit spicy. I do feel like, listen, if we want to do a full same game parlay with the Rangers game, throw in a little anytime goal scorer, Lafreniere +190. He's been really clicking the last half of the year. You guys have been waiting for that for a long time, and he's finally making his moves. Still not quite 40 points on the year, but definitely a breakout year compared to what he has been. So if you wanted to do a full same game parlay, I do like Lafreniere to score a goal, but I'll dial down the risk a little bit and just keep it, like you said, John, keep it chalk. Edmonton -1.5 is -110. So I'll have that as my best bet.
There we go. Nice and easy. No crazy odds today. The under 2.5 for Columbus and the Rangers puck line together is +134. And then you add the Oilers puck line at -110. It's a +346 parlay.
Yeah. I think my pick brought down the maximum odds a bit, but hopefully that just means we're going to hit it.
Nothing
None
wrong
of the
with
odds were crazy. So that's definitely a big part of it.
Also,
and then if you assume the Rangers going to win by multiple goals, that and the Jackets goal total together isn't going to be that high. It's kind of implied.
Yeah. Hey, man, sometimes nothing wrong with lower odds, man. If you think it's going to hit, it's lower odds for a reason. It's the implied percentage is higher.
For sure.
Yeah. I can throw around some terms every once in a while. Well, everybody, as always, thank you so much for watching or listening, whether you're watching live or throughout the day. We appreciate you. Thank you very much. Like, subscribe, all that good stuff. Follow us on all of our socials. John, have a wonderful vacay, bro. We'll miss you. We'll hold it down the best we can. Hopefully the show doesn't go up in flames while you're gone, but we'll do what we can. Also, First Round Collectibles, promo code SportsAddict, 10% off. We will see you guys.